this is what Mamdani said after he was interviewed on NBC following his meeting with Trump. You know, he was in there during the meeting with Trump. He was asked, hey, do you think Trump is a fascist? Trump said, just say yeah. Trump seemed to be enjoying his time with Mamdani. It was strange, but at the end of the day, he's the president. Mamdani is going to be the mayor of New York. You would hope that they get along, and they seem to have gotten along, or at least Trump seemed to have liked Mamdani on their first meeting. So I'm not sure what more you could ask for. I liked it. I like to see it. But we're going to get into what happened with Mamdani in his interview with NBC after he met Trump. So let's check this out. We're not going to watch the whole thing. It's I think it's about 17 minutes, if I remember correctly.
And joining me now is the mayor-elect of New York City, Zohran Mamdani. Mr. Mayor-elect, welcome back to Meet the Press, and congratulations.
I got to tell you, I don't necessarily dislike Mamdani. I don't think that all of his policies are going to work, but I really hate that smile. It reminds me of a cartoon. I can't remember which one, but it looks so disingenuous. Regardless of what his politics are, it's like a fake smile that you get when you're passing somebody on the street, and it really bothers me. But it has nothing to do with his actual politics, so it doesn't matter.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be back.
Well, it is wonderful to have you here in person, fresh off of your first meeting with President Donald Trump. He praised you. He even said you could do a great job as mayor despite months of a bitter back and forth. Were you surprised by the warm welcome that you got?
You know, I was looking forward to having the meeting with the president to speak about the needs of the 8.5 million people who call the same city we love home, and to speak, frankly, about the affordability crisis that is pushing so many of them out of those 5 boroughs. And I found in the meeting that I had with the president a productive one, and a meeting that came back again and again to the central themes of the campaign that we ran: the cost of housing, cost of childcare, the cost of groceries, the cost of utilities. And it showed that this is an opportunity to now start to deliver so that people can do more than just aspire to struggle in New York City, but actually to be able to live there.
But did you expect?
Mamdani is a gifted orator, but it really annoyed me that he didn't answer that question. And the reason why is we know that his entire meeting with Trump was based on affordability. He talked about when he was running the campaign, when he was elected, hey, if Donald Trump wants to sit down and talk about affordability for New Yorkers, we can absolutely do that. He also said that he doesn't necessarily like Trump, but, he's not going to get into the back and forth with him. He only wants to talk about affordability for New York. If it's outside of that, then he has no interest in it. But I was curious what his idea was, just as a viewer, not just somebody that lives in New York or anything, but I would have liked to know, how did you feel after you had met Trump in person? But, he's saying that his only intention is to deliver for New Yorkers on affordability. That's all he wants to talk about. He doesn't want to talk about the niceties that they exchanged or the insults that they exchanged. So, like I said, the only insight that we have on the relationship is Mamdani standing next to Trump looking at him in adoration, basically. But I would have liked to know what his actual feelings are after the meeting. So that was a bit annoying as well.
To be so chummy, what was going through your head when you were standing there?
I thought again and again about what it would mean for New Yorkers if we could establish a productive relationship that would focus on the issues that those New Yorkers stay up late at night thinking about. Because so often in our politics, we try and tell people what they should be worried about, what they should be concerned about. But when you actually ask New Yorkers and you listen to them, you hear it come back to the issues that animated not just the conversation the president and I had with the press after our meeting, but frankly in the meeting itself. It was a conversation where we spoke about the need to deliver on this agenda. And I appreciated that when we had that meeting, it wasn't just in the Oval Office. He also took me into the cabinet room, and there we were looking at portraits of presidents of years gone by, and we admired a portrait of FDR. And in many ways, when I think about the candidacy that we've put forward, it looks to Fiorello LaGuardia as the greatest mayor in New York City history. You can't tell the story of LaGuardia without telling the story of FDR and the story of a relationship with the federal government that finally delivered at the scale of the crisis it was facing.
Well,
the short answer I'm going to tell you is he said, I got along with Trump well enough for him to back off of New Yorkers and give us the money that we need. That's the short answer. I know he talked at length, saying a lot of nothing. He's saying we're getting affordability. We talked about the affordability agenda, and I'm getting along with Trump only in that respect.
Your meeting, I don't have to tell you this, President Trump repeatedly threatened to cut off federal funding to New York if you won. The president seemed to back away from that yesterday, though, in his public comments in that joint news conference that you all did. He said, I don't think that's going to happen. I expect to be helping him, not hurting him. Do you believe him when he says that?
No, I believed the president in the conversation that we had, and I will continue to make the case, both to the president and to the country at large, about the needs of New Yorkers. Because what I found, frankly, is that New Yorkers have grown tired of being asked to believe in a system that has delivered very little for them. They're tired of a politics that expects everything from them while delivering little. And what they want now is a politics that can see the scale of the crisis in front of it and actually start to work together to deliver on that crisis.
You ran a campaign.
This is the same thing that I was talking about with Marjorie Taylor Greene. This is why it's a net negative for her to be leaving, because you have people that are saying, hey, I'm recognizing where the people are going, what the people need, and I'm putting that at the forefront. We talk about all of these ideas that Mamdani has, whether they're going to work, whether they're not going to work. At the end of the day, he's saying people need this, and I'm willing to put aside my differences with the president in order to meet him and try to work on behalf of the people that elected me to represent them. Marjorie Taylor Greene, the same thing. She's saying, hey, I'm trying to push and advocate for the people that I represent, that I'm in Congress to represent. Unfortunately, Marjorie Taylor Greene, she waved the white flag. She said, hey, I'm out of here. I'm not going to be bullied. I'm not going to be a quote unquote, this is her words, I'm not going to be a battered wife that just sits here and takes it. But this is the type of politician that we need, regardless of if you like their agenda. They're saying, hey, I'm not going to be beholden to anybody outside of the people that I represent. So I like it from Mamdani. I liked it from Marjorie Taylor Greene. And we need more of it. We need an entire wave of this type of politics going into the future.
Though, saying that President Trump had not delivered on his promise of affordability. Did anything that happened in that meeting make you think, yes, he can deliver on that promise for Americans, for New Yorkers?
Well, I spoke to the president about the fact that while our campaign technically began on October 23rd last year, for many people, they became aware of it after the president won his election. And when I went out and spoke to New Yorkers, asking them who did they vote for and why, in two neighborhoods that swung most significantly towards the president. This was Fordham Road in the Bronx, Hillside Avenue in Queens. And I shared with the president that when I asked those New Yorkers why did they vote for the president, they told me again and again it was cost of living, cost of living, cost of living. And when the president and I were speaking, we were speaking about what is preventing from delivering on that affordability agenda. Sometimes it's a lack of taking on the broken system that we have. And I spoke about in New York City, for example, zoning regulations. We spoke about ULURP. This is a process by which you either approve or deny zoning changes that are made in New York City. We spoke about the need to change so many of those situations such that a developer doesn't tell you the thing more expensive than labor or materials is waiting. And we also spoke about the importance of understanding what it is that hurts New Yorkers in their pockets. It's their rent, it's their childcare, it's their utilities, and it's their childcare. Because the childcare, I say twice, because it is the second highest cost after housing, $22,500 a year for a single child.
Well, let me ask you.
I think that I don't know entirely what Zohran Mamdani's agenda is in terms of the deregulation to make housing more affordable. But of course, that's a thing that Republicans want. Republicans, Trump, he's a real estate guy. I'm sure that he believes that something needs to happen in terms of deregulation in order to build more housing. I think at one point, Trump was even talking about taking some of the federal land and using that for housing as well, opening that up to be constructed for residential, residential zoning. So I feel like if that was part of the conversation, doing some sort of deregulation or helping cut some of the red tape and push construction through, that's obviously something that Trump is going to that he's going to greenlight, that he's going to try to expedite for Mamdani, because that's something that Trump wants. That's something that is on his agenda as well, getting more property built. So I can see why Trump is saying, hey, he may surprise some conservatives. He may win over some people. So we got to see how it goes. Everything is still an idea at this point. Mamdani isn't going to assume office until January 1st, 2026. So after that, the plan has to play out. But Trump has already said, I see me being a help to him, not a burden. I'm going to help him get the money. I'm going to help him deliver on his agenda. So, we've got plenty to look forward to in that relationship, hopefully, for the better of, the constituents over in New York City.
About the other threat that we heard from President Trump to send troops to New York City to address issues of crime and immigration. We've seen him do this in other major cities. Did you get any assurances in your meeting, Mayor-elect Mamdani, that President Trump will not send troops into New York?
I told the president that the cornerstone of an affordability agenda is public safety, and that it is critically important to me. And for all that has been said and all that has been spoken about, and the tens of millions of dollars looking to make New Yorkers fearful of that question, the truth of it is, in fact, that I'm looking forward to working with the NYPD to deliver on that. And I shared with the president that my decision to retain Police Commissioner Jessica Tisch is in large part a recognition of the fact that in her time leading the NYPD, she has driven down crime across the 5 boroughs while starting to uproot corruption that was endemic in the top echelons of that department under Mayor Adams.
And I'm going to follow up with you on your decision to keep Commissioner Tisch. But to this core question that I think so many New Yorkers are curious to know the answer to, what did President Trump say to you? Did he assure you he will not send troops into New York?
He told me that he cared deeply about public safety. I said I cared deeply about the same.
But did he say he wouldn't send troops?
What I told him is that what separates New York City from anywhere else in the country is we have the NYPD. And I trust the NYPD to deliver public safety. And to me, that is something that I know that they can do, that they have done, and they will continue to do under my leadership.
So he didn't rule it out.
That is a phenomenal answer. I'm going to tell you why. Trump has said that he wants to make sure that New York is safe. He said we're going to start sending federal troops. We're going to activate the National Guard. And what Mamdani is saying is, hey, we already trust the people that are here. You're from New York. Are you saying that you don't trust the NYPD to do their job? If you say no, it kind of paints Trump's view of NYPD in a bad light. So Mamdani is saying, hey, I trust them. Do you trust them? If you don't trust them, then you would send police, or you would send the National Guard, and you would send these federal agents there. Now, to the point of crime, nobody wants crime. There's nobody that is a law-abiding citizen that wants to live next to criminals, especially violent criminals. I'm not talking about somebody that's making, like a lot of NBA players have been doing some like side betting or gambling. You can't do it. It's illegal. But nobody's like, oh, those people need to be arrested. Everybody is against violent crime. And Mamdani, he's recently married. At some point, they're going to have a kid. I'm sure that ensuring that New York City is safe is part of his agenda, right? So I like that Trump is looking at him, looking at his idea and saying, okay, I'm going to trust you and what you said in your agenda, and we'll see how it plays out. Now, Trump has said we haven't fully ruled it out, but we don't need it at this point. So a win is a win. You got to take your W's when you can. And this is the W for Trump, and it's a W for Mamdani, because a lot of people do not want the National Guard activated in their city. It doesn't matter if this in DC and Chicago, over in California. We've seen the anti-ICE and the anti-immigration task force protests. So it's a losing bet for the Trump administration. And he's saying, hey, we don't need them in New York right now. We'll just do what we can with the NYPD.
Out in your meeting,
I made it very clear what we wanted to do was to deliver public safety and affordability, and the NYPD would be the ones to do so.
In that press conference with President Trump, a reporter asked you whether you believe that President Trump is in fact a fascist, a word that you've used in the past. You were about to answer, then President Trump sort of jumped in and he said, quote, "That's okay, you can just say yes. It's easier than explaining it." So, Mr. Mayor-elect, just to be very clear, do you think that President Trump is a fascist?
And after President Trump said that, I said yes. And
so you do.
And that's something that I've said in the past. I say it today. And I think what I appreciated about the conversation that I had with the president was that we were not shy about the places of disagreement about the politics that has brought us to this moment. And we also wanted to focus on what it could look like to deliver on a shared analysis of an affordability crisis for New Yorkers.
You've also said in the past that President Trump...
All right, so I'm going to give you my final thoughts. We're going to leave this there. I did think that that was super interesting when Trump basically said, hey, just tell him, just tell him you think I'm a fascist. Trump is like, I don't care about anything else. Me and you were friends. You're good in my book. Just, as long as we get along, you could tell the press whatever. And that was super interesting. I didn't think that Trump was going to take the approach with Mamdani that he did. I thought it was not necessarily hostile. At the end of the day, he is the president. This is a leader in the country that people voted for. So I didn't think there was going to be hostile, but I did think that there was going to be a little bit of contention between them. Trump seemed to like Mamdani. Mamdani seems to be a stick in the mud. He's like, hey, I'm not moving on my idea, Trump, but it is what it is, right? Hopefully the people of New York get what it is that they voted for in the most positive way possible, right? Hopefully they get what they voted for. But it's to be seen.